Welcome to the Chaos Sector. In today's episode, we follow up with the Georgia state hearing. But I think it's obvious what occurred. We turn our attention to the wicked witch in Senator Elena Parent. Her attitude is very nasty, and she needs to be held accountable. For this, we hand it over to our video analysis and body language expert, Sonnen. I'm sure there's a lot to reveal on this individual.
Oh yes, this person is quite the snapper fish. Miss Parent is quite vocal in that hearing, and appears very aggressive in her questioning. Let's examine both her tone of voice, the manner in which she spoke, body language, and facial expressions throughout the hearing.
Okay, I know that there are some senators that would like to make a statement or two, and I'll allow that, and then we'll close it out after that. So, Senator Parent, I know you wanted to say something, so I'll recognize you now.
Thank you. I'm number 6, am I on? Yeah.
You're on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, colleagues, I sort of feel like where I sit that it's kind of like an Alice in Wonderland moment where you've gone down a rabbit hole and through the looking glass everything gets wavy and seems really confusing. But to me that seems like a sort of alternate universe that we don't have a lot of evidence of.
What is she talking about? This is absolutely gibberish. Miss Parent is barely cohesive, as she struggles to find anything close to a substantial point or argument. Let's continue.
Frankly, and there's a lot of misinformation or misstatements even being disseminated by some witnesses, probably in good faith. But when you investigate further, you realize that this is really not a surprise, because if you've read the affidavits that have been filed with a lot of these lawsuits, what you will find is that people see things that they think are suspicious, but they do not understand the elections process in Georgia. And once that gets investigated, you find out that what they have actually seen are things unfolding the way that they should be.
Her tone is very defensive, rather than optimistic. Her statements suggest she is attempting to disprove an allegation, rather than genuinely approaching the issue. When someone displays pessimism, instead of optimism, it indicates they are more dishonest. Most people who are optimistic are more likely to be genuine and honest, confronting issues with a more balanced perspective than those who are pessimistic. Miss Parent's tone and her statements indicate she is personally invested in the ruling in this hearing. Now, to be honest, if you are a part of either political party, that's fine. But if officials have debunked the claim from Miss Parent that the state investigators debunked the allegations regarding that surveillance, it is best to humble oneself and accept the facts, rather than continuing to display an aggressive attitude. And there is more of that, of course.
And I just would like to mention just a couple of those things. First of all, in the video that we were shown, as I mentioned to our Whip Gooch, the Secretary of State has issued many statements about all those things that were raised in the video. And the Secretary of State says our monitor was there. And in fact, since this morning, they've identified the person. It's a young white guy between 25 and 30 wearing a blue jacket that is in the video. That is their monitor that was there the whole time. Some people have filed affidavits not understanding that there is a duplication process when ballots can't be scanned. UOCAVA ballots, because then when they're UOCAVA, Uniformed Overseas Citizen Absentee Voting Act, something like that, people are printing them on home computers at their houses abroad. They have to be duplicated, and there's a procedure for duplication.
Now, this is passive aggression from Miss Parent. Earlier in the episode, you witnessed how state officials notified Miss Parent and the board that the surveillance hadn't been viewed prior. Miss Parent simply will not concede that fact, because it eliminates her claim that the allegations regarding that surveillance had been debunked. If you take away this claim from Miss Parent, then everything that followed, including that report from the news, is false. If they hadn't viewed the surveillance yet, and it was eventually used as evidence of criminal activity, this means Miss Parent's position is one of defiance. Also, her attempts to suggest individuals were not aware of how Georgia state elections work is a deflection from the facts. Which is ineffective anyway, because what she referred to was illegal actions from election workers who counted ballots without supervision from poll watchers and the media. Now that is Georgia state law. So she is constantly putting her foot in her mouth, trying to fight against facts and even evidence.
So you see a lot of these affidavits where people are like, this seems weird, this seems fraudulent, when actually it's the process. The human error raised into cab, there have been, by Mr. Amick, I think, there have been numerous news stories about that. That would have been caught later in the process. If you canvass the vote properly at the county level, before you go ahead and submit, you will catch things like that.
Miss Parent is communicating with her hands entirely too much, which is a sign of persuasion. In my research, I have found that talking with your hands, quote, lightens the cognitive load of speaking. Previous research has suggested that certain hand gestures can signal extroversion and dominance. There are two sides of this coin, honest and dishonest. A person that is honest, who communicates frequently with their hands, is simply trying to prove a point or show a strong belief regarding an issue. A person who is dishonest, though, use this form of communication as a way to influence by way of deceptive movements, which are often mistaken for affirmation and confirmation regarding a subject matter. The way she brings her hands together, as if she is clapping, is showing a firm stance, not willing to compromise and accept the facts presented. But the key aspect is using this method of communication to lighten the cognitive load. What this means in Miss Parent's case, she cannot refute what had been presented, which was concrete evidence that an illegal action had taken place regarding ballot counts unsupervised. As a result, her brain cannot produce a logical rebuttal to evidence. Therefore, in a dishonest person, the next form of communication is in fact aggression, through hand gestures. In other words, in this specific setting, Miss Parent is taking out her aggression through her hands, instead of revealing her frustration through her words. This is her brain's way of fighting off the quote, cognitive gridlock. Dishonest individuals in a debate setting are often quick to become frustrated because their brains lack the ability to rationalize a viewpoint that is dishonest or irrational. Despite her level of education, intelligence, or intellect, Miss Parent is incapable of producing a cognitive thought because she is dishonest. Oh my words, she is in bad shape. Let's continue.
And that is because faith in our elections is crucial. People do feel that results can't be trusted. That is a problem.
You could hear her thoughts with that dead silence in the building. A silence of suspicion is clearly detected at this very moment. Another characteristic of a dishonest person is evasion. Miss Parent will not address the element of provisions, policies, and the law regarding ballot counting that night. You cannot count ballots, which are assumed to be legal, without the presence of poll watchers and the media. It's the classic elephant in the room, and Miss Parent simply will not look in its direction. The problem is with elephants, you will still see it despite looking away, and you most definitely will know it's there. Miss Parent knows there was a violation of her state's law that night, but will evade it despite the elephant destroying her living room. That's her brain, by the way.
First of all, there is the 23 investigators and 250 complaints at the Secretary of State's office. But even aside from that, if we were interested in finding out the truth behind statements being made, we would have a hearing where many of those could be discussed and we could ask questions of people that have knowledge about how Georgia's election systems are run. And we did not have that. So it seems pretty clear to me that we aren't actually really interested in trying to get to the bottom of some of these complaints. Could our election be run better? Human error does not equal fraud. Bad management does not equal fraud. Of course we need to have secure elections. I'm sure there are myriad ways that you guys think it could be run better, and that I think it could be run better. There are, so let's talk about those. But we do not have evidence of widespread irregularities that would change the election, and that's what you need to really talk about this. I've mentioned it 3 times already today. 40 judges and 40 lawsuits have not found that. Attorney General Barr has not found that. Brad Raffensperger and everyone involved in elections in Georgia have not found that. And with that, we get to this notion that we should seize the power away from the voters. I think we all know, and Chairman Heath raised it, in order for us to even contemplate doing that, we would have to call a special session and change the law. The governor, speaker, and lieutenant governor have already said, we're not calling a special session. You need 3/5 of the legislature to call a special session. Clearly that's not going to happen. If these folks have evidence of fraud.
She is literally yelling in this hearing, which is not only unprofessional, but clearly shows her agitation with the entire proceeding. Notice how there isn't anyone else raising their voices? Something tells me she had her hand in the cookie jar. The tone in her voice is often unstable, where 1 minute it's balanced, then the next, it's aggressive. Her voice even cracks often, which indicates a fear of something being revealed, or just flat-out anger. Now this is even more of a concern, as this indicates Miss Parent may be suffering from a mental illness, such as being a sociopath or schizophrenic, which often are linked to pathological liars as well. In psychology, when someone is dishonest, there is always signs. Lack of eye contact, constant blinking of eyes, fidgeting with their hair, their hands, excessive leg crossing, stuttering, long pauses within their speech, deflection, projection, and ironically reverse psychology. Speaking in sentence fragments is a major problem, such as starting a sentence, yet erratically transition to something else related. Because the brain is conflicting with the information, evidence, facts, or truth of an issue, the person's nervous system produces physical reactions of this brain activity. In Miss Parent's case, her entire nervous system is out of whack, as her brain is scrambled like eggs in a frying pan. The result? A very angry and hostile senator that is not ladylike.
That would change the election. They can and should present it in the courts and to the Secretary of State's office. People who have the ability to investigate, recommend changes to us, and if there's a big problem, then let's hear it, then we have to take action. But until we have that, engaging in a lot of these things does more to undermine Georgians' trust in the election than it does to help it. Ever since today started, I have been attacked. The Secretary of State's office has had to take action as it relates to my address. And I've started to get some of the vile things that some of our other colleagues at the Secretary of State.
Now, this would be reverse psychology. So, individuals have threatened this person over election results? Honestly, this does not seem believable, but I would not claim it's impossible. It's more likely to be a victimization tactic to once again persuade the board of her argument. Remember, her position is damage control, attempting to convince the board to disregard the surveillance examined in the hearing. There had already been an illegal action that took place in surveillance, and even Miss Parent lied in this hearing. She claimed state investigators debunked the surveillance video as election fraud, but the surveillance hadn't been examined yet. And once she was confronted about it, she states, quote, "I'm not an expert on this issue." Not so fast, you previously were so blatant about an allegation being debunked, right? Come to find out, the source in which she claimed did this hadn't viewed the video to do so. So that was a sign of concealing a truth deeper than just that lie. If she lied about that, which is primarily the focus of the hearing, can we truly believe she has been threatened? A dishonest person will always attempt to convince you that they are honest. They will work very hard at this because they cannot allow their true identity to be revealed. And this is why she is so aggressive. That aggression is simply a defense mechanism to avoid her true identity. I could do this all day, but let's wrap it up.
We've given it oxygen, and I think that does a disservice to so many Georgians. You got evidence, show up in court and prove it. That's how it has to be. And in the meantime, we've got OCGA 21-501F, where we have said that the person who gets the most votes is who gets the electors. And do we really want to mess around and have to redo every single one of our own elections too? I'm a little confused about that. Are none of us legitimately elected? Can anyone answer that for me?
She is claiming the election process of her becoming a senator to an election process that clearly violated Georgia state law in that surveillance is the same process? Okay, let the cat out of the bag. Was this an admission of corruption in the state of Georgia? Dishonest people often have moments of unintended truth spill out. Let me explain, because it's quite the phenomenon. To the dishonest person, a statement such as this sounds logical in their brain at the moment when the thought is processed and analyzed. But because they are dishonest, they are often consumed with themselves and not effectively in touch with those who hear them make such a statement. Simply put, that sounded smart in her head, but not outside of it. She attempted to gain an empathetic value with the Board of Electors and residents of Georgia in attendance, yet her comparing her being elected is not the same process of what occurred in State Farm's arena. One consists of the proper election laws and procedure, which led to her becoming state senator, presumably. While the other consists of election workers counting ballots, without poll watchers or media present to monitor this activity, which is illegal. Once again, dishonest people always have lapses in brain function. But we know what this is about, damage control. I'm done with this woman. She is a prime example of corrupt politics in the United States. And I didn't have to research her background, I simply examined her. This is the chaos sector,